The World Health Organization says the last major functioning hospital in northern Gaza has been put out of service after it was evacuated by the Israeli military. The Kamal Adwan Hospital had been under siege by the IDF for weeks. Staff say airstrikes there on Friday killed 50 people. The head of the hospital's nursing department told the BBC the army gave them only a 15-minute warning to evacuate patients and staff before the Israeli military then entered the hospital to remove anyone that remained.
I remember when there was a big debate over whether or not the IDF had bombed a single hospital in the Gaza Strip. But now the last remaining major hospital in northern Gaza is out of commission following a raid and forced evacuation by the Israeli Defense Forces. Now that means that some 75,000 Palestinians remaining in the northern part of the Gaza Strip are at even greater risk of dying because medical attention, medical care is completely unavailable. Now, the raid has rendered the hospital empty of patients, some of whom are critically ill, according to the World Health Organization. Here's NBC's reporting from over the weekend on this matter.
And it was forcibly evacuated, we understand, this morning at 7 a.m. local time in Gaza when the Israeli military stormed the hospital and forced the evacuation of staff as well as patients. You can imagine that evacuation of a hospital complex like that one in a war zone as it is being stormed is incredibly difficult and challenging and potentially deadly with patients on ventilators, for example. Some of the medical staff were arrested. We saw images of them being marched out, stripped as well. And one of the journalists, Ellison, covering the attack on the hospital itself was also arrested. And we saw a lot of smoke and images posted online rising from the building in the vicinity of the medical complex. Where these patients are going is unclear. There are some reports they were taken to the Indonesian hospital, but that hospital too is almost all but completely incapacitated and unable to care for patients.
She's correct about the Indonesian hospital. It's barely functional and is not equipped to care for some of the patients that were being treated at Kamal Adwan Hospital. Now, patients and staff were allegedly forced to strip down and leave the hospital on foot after some departments were set on fire by the IDF, including the laboratory, surgical unit, engineering and maintenance department, and the medical store. Now, they deny starting the fires. I mean, who else would start the fires? But nonetheless, the Israeli Defense Forces over the weekend said it had detained at least 240 Hamas and Islamic Jihad terrorists around the hospital, alleging the facility was being used as a Hamas terror stronghold.
Of course they did.
It said Monday that troops had also operated to identify and eliminate multiple terrorists in the area overnight. Look, we had previously shared a story about what the Israeli government was planning to do with the northern half of the Gaza Strip. And their operation made clear, or their planned operations made clear, that they were gonna wipe that area out of all Palestinians. If Palestinians had refused or failed to leave the northern part of the Gaza Strip and go to the south, well, that was on them. They're not differentiating between civilians and Hamas militants. I mean, that's been the case since the beginning, but it's more and more obvious every passing day. They also detained the hospital's director, Dr. Hussam Abu Safiya, arguing without evidence that he's a Hamas operative, because they'll just label any person a Hamas operative, especially if it's a male, and it's not clear where he is now. No one knows, but 2 Palestinian prisoners released this weekend from Israel's State Taman Detention Center said that they saw him at the prison. As for what services are left in northern Gaza, very little. Mohammed Salha, director of the Al-Auda Hospital in northern Gaza, which is barely functioning and severely damaged due to recent airstrikes, said Monday that his own medical facility has very little fuel and is overflowing with patients despite limited supplies. Quote, "We have one surgeon who is only performing when a case is in a life-threatening situation. The health system in the north is completely deteriorated. We are working to save what is left. And he says the hospital also has to wait for approval from the Israeli military before allowing the Red Cross to move patients that require special treatment from the north further into the south.
Yeah, so I'm gonna try to remain calm as I lay out these facts. So as Anna just explained to you, last hospital in northern Gaza raided, destroyed. And so if there are no hospitals, it can't maintain life. So we told you they were gonna drive everybody out of northern Gaza and steal that land. That is exactly what they're doing. So, and now they said to Beit Hanun, which is also in northern Gaza, everyone, all citizens must leave the city because we're gonna do a bombing campaign to level the city. So let me translate that for you, because there is a different way that you could phrase that. The American press phrases it politely in honor and service of the IDF and the Israeli government. Another way to phrase it is, leave the town now, otherwise we're going to murder everyone in town. Men, women, and children, we're gonna murder all of you. So we need you to go to southern Gaza because we're planning to take your land. So, and we're terrorists, and that's what we do. We terrorize you, we threaten to murder you, and then we deliver on that murder if you don't comply with our orders. And we don't care if you're a Hamas fighter or you're a 2-month-old baby in Beit Hanun. We will murder all of you. And so that's what they've done in northern Gaza. Murder after murder, terrorist act after terrorist act. And every one of their statements have proven to be a lie afterwards. This idea that this incredibly well-respected doctor that the UN, human rights groups, and everyone else supports and is now on a search for is somehow secretly working with Hamas when the IDF has lied about every single statement. It's absurd. It's absurd. Anyone who would believe the Israelis should have their head examined. I mean, go to a counselor, work on your issues. There's no chance that the IDF is telling the truth about not only this doctor, but the 240 other medical staff that they kidnapped, imprisoned in secret dungeons. And so they say, no, it's a secret location. In this location, human rights groups, IDF soldiers have said they do torture. We've shown you the cases of some of the detention facilities where they rape the detainees. But no, just because we kidnap people and torture them doesn't mean that it's a dungeon. No, it does. And Israel is now definitely, unquestionably, a terrorist state. It murders all civilians in its path, and it does it for imperial, colonialist, disgusting empire expansion. And so it's, if you can't see what's happening in northern Gaza, you purposely blinded yourself because you are a tribalist and you think my tribe's lives are 10,000 times more important than these ants, these insects, these Palestinians whose lives don't matter at all. Please, Israel, murder more of them because we haven't murdered enough of them. That's what's happening in Israel now. It's textbook ethnic cleansing. This is,
I think it's pretty clear.
Look, the Armenian genocide was way worse because there's so many more people involved.
1.5 million.
That's right. So, and what Bashar al-Assad did in Syria is worse because there were so many more people involved and he killed so many of them, right? But this is as clear a case of ethnic cleansing as I have ever seen. Because it's not like, hey, they moved them from here to here, but then they didn't kill them or whatever. No, they're saying everyone who doesn't move out of these cities that Israel wants for itself, we will murder all of you. It doesn't get any more ethnic cleansing and genocide than that. It just doesn't. So that's where we are. And by the way, if you're watching and you're an American citizen, you paid for that genocide. And you continue to pay for it every day. Every time you get a paycheck, look at that check and go, oh, they took out money to fund the genocide of Palestinians because donors here in America demanded that our politicians support that genocide. And since all of our politicians are the most immoral people in the country, they happily funded that genocide with your money. And those people are going to get murdered, and that hospital is gone. You know what happened in the latest bombing? A 2-month-old to a 20-month-old, of course, baby after baby. Now the babies are freezing to death.
Yeah.
And so they're saying that there's the injuries that are a huge problem, malnutrition, which is a huge problem. The UN cannot get aid trucks in. Israel's blocking all the aid trucks. None have come in since December 26th. Every time they ask for permission to bring in food or medicine, Israel says no. Why do they say no? Because they're in the middle of murdering everyone in northern Gaza. And they always say, look, we're not killing all the Palestinians. We could even murder more, but we didn't murder the ones in Israel. just the ones in the areas we'd like to steal. So when they go to steal northern Gaza, I don't want to hear a word from any other Israeli supporter. Because they're gonna come up with new excuses, you know that, right? Oh, we had to do it for security reasons, self-defense. I had to steal all of your land for self-defense. I had to murder your babies for self-defense. This has nothing to do with self-defense, and Israel right now is one of the worst terrorist states I have ever seen in my lifetime.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR, so those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.